Hi, I'm Tim Williams, and today I will be presenting to you my informative speech for my public speaking class. And to start, I will be introducing my audience. Over here we have my mother, my mom, and Barry. And recording me and operating the camera is Alex, who will be walking around right now. Alex. Okay. Thank you. Does your local grocery store have an organic food section? Do you ever shop there? Well, organic foods have been massively growing in popularity over the last few years, and their availability has just exploded. And they've been reported by the Business News Daily in an article written by Ned Smith earlier this year as the fastest growing sector of the grocery market. So you've probably heard of organic foods, and you've probably heard how they're more nutritious, or they taste better, or they may even be better for the environment. But that premium comes at a cost. But some people feel that cost is worth paying because the alternative may mean foods that are coated in pesticides or foods that are genetically modified. And so whether or not you've considered where your food comes from, let me take a moment out of your time to explain to you how we get traits from traditional breeding and genetic modification, and how the DNA ends up with the traits we have today in modern crops. So, just last week, I was at a conference from the Botanical Society of America, where the newly elected president, Elizabeth Kellogg, gave her introductory address on how important it is that the plant biologists at the conference devote some of their time to studying crops and improving crops. And this isn't something these people normally study, but it's very important to the society. And as she was just talking to people about how important this was, she never stressed how they should be spending their time and what they should be studying. Because in the end, however we get our food, it really doesn't matter. Food is food, regardless of where it comes from. So, before you leave here today, I want you to understand where your food comes from. And to this end, I will describe to you how we get food and traits from traditional breeding, from genetic modification, and how those traits come to be. So to start, I want to remind you how sex works. Not intercourse, but how traits get passed from parents to offspring. So, this started with Gregor Mendel, who's the father of modern genetics, seminal work in 1866, where he studied pea plants and their genetics and inheritance. And he showed that traits are passed in discrete units that we call genes. Now, we now know that genes are encoded in DNA, but he had no idea what encoded genes. That didn't come until 1953 with Watson and Crick's paper that got published in the journal Nature that showed the structure of DNA. And we now know DNA is passed from parent to offspring, and each offspring ends up with a new combination of DNA and a new combination of traits from that new combination of DNA. And it's always been this way for as long as life's been around. But new technology allows us to tweak this a little bit. So as I said, DNA normally passes directly from parent to offspring, but viruses and some bacteria can get around this by inserting their own DNA into the organisms they infect. And scientists have actually modified this technique the viruses use to insert whatever genes they want into the host they infect. And the host organism can't tell where that DNA comes from. The DNA just gets expressed as a trait. So the genetically modified organism that gets infected by the virus that has that new trait they put in it can't tell the difference. Whether that trait is from algae or jellyfish, it doesn't matter. It will get expressed just like it was expressed in algae or the jellyfish, or whatever organism it came from. So both genetic modification and traditional breeding use techniques to get new combinations of genes, to get new combination of traits. Now, the central dogma of molecular biology is that DNA gets converted into RNA, and that gets converted into protein. And we know that protein gives all the traits that we have. So the source of the DNA doesn't matter. It always gets turned into protein, and that gets turned into traits. So that's all there is. There's no funky chemicals that are in GMOs that aren't in anything else. All the chemicals in GMOs are present in some other organism. So keep that in mind next time you see GMO in the news. So to review, breeding mixes traits from within a species in new combinations. And genetic modification creates new combinations of DNA from traits that from species that couldn't normally have sex. But the offspring can't tell the difference. They can't tell where that DNA came from. So food is food, regardless of where it came from. And next time you walk past that organic food section in the grocery store, you can save your money knowing that it doesn't matter where your food comes from. Whether it's an heirloom tomato or genetically modified tomato, the end product's the same.